Controversial parenting topic, but I want to talk about the concept of sharing. I'm not a fan. I am not a fan of having, like, teaching kids that they have to share. I think it's bizarre. So, because as grown-ups, we don't do it. So, we don't force people to share things with us when we're grown-ups. So, why do we force kids to share things when they're kids? Um, Toys that don't belong to you in that kind of situation, like if you're at school and you're playing with a friend, like, yeah, okay, sharing is nice, sharing is caring, whatever. But like, if you're playing with something and then just because like Susie wants it doesn't mean Susie should get it. Having to give it up, having to, I think, is the issue there. Like, if a kid doesn't share, then there's this big like negative stigma. um and they're like they're mean, they're a bad kid, they're not being nice, or whatever, insert whatever phrase you want to there. And I just really dislike that. I dislike it because as grown-ups we don't live that way. What's mine is not yours. What's mine I don't have to share with you. I can if I want to. I have the ability and free will to do so, but I don't have to. And not sharing what's mine does not make me a mean person. Not being mean. Um, it's such a bizarre thing to me. But anyway, that's like my soapbox. I got on this because something happened today, and I was thinking like, my reaction to it was not normal, I guess. And like, I don't know. Anyway, so I'll tell you the story. So we were at church, and Remy had some snacks. Like, I always pack, usually like a bag of goldfish, usually a bag of Oreos. He had a lunchbox full of stuff because I had had it packed from the whole weekend. And so he was eating his, I think it was goldfish that he was eating at the moment. And this other friend came over and sat with us, and the other friend immediately reached out and wanted to put her hand into the bag to get goldfish out, and Remy like held out the bag because he was going to share, he was going to be a nice friend. But I wouldn't. I took the bag from both of them, and I poured goldfish into my hand and handed them to her. um, because as an allergy mom, I wasn't trying to be mean to this kid, but we shared the food. But as an allergy mom, I have this fear that, like, I don't know what she ate for breakfast. She could have had actually scrambled eggs, eating with her hands, and not wash them well enough, or wash them well and there still be, the allergen traces on her hands, and then going into the food, and us not knowing that, and then potentially having a really terrible day. So I stopped her from reaching into the bag, and both kids looked at me like I was the crazy one. And I am the crazy one because that's not normal. That's not the reaction that you get. You like share your food with your friend. Even if you don't want to share your food with your friend, you still have to, because that's what the nice thing to do is. And so they both were like stunned that I had done that. And then she wanted an Oreo. So I took the Oreo out and handed it to her. Because as the mom of a toddler with, oh, is Remy still a toddler? I don't even know when that ends. He's 4.5. But I have to teach him, like, he can't share food like other kids share food. He just can't. He needs to be very careful about what people touch that's his, that he's about to ingest, and he needs to not take food from other people. I know I had those conversations with Riley when he was growing up. Like, you cannot take food from anybody else. Never swap food at lunch at school. I always pack your lunch. You are only allowed to eat what I pack you. You are not allowed to like swap anything with anybody else from school. And because you don't know where that has been, what has been cross contaminated with, if anything. So we were pretty good there for Riley. And then, but Remy, he's in that learning stage. So I'm having to have those conversations with him. I know at school, his school, they don't let you share food. And so I don't worry too much about that. It's more, I think, at church or in social situations where he's with friends, where they're like You're just trying to be nice. So, and I was thinking, like, I wonder, I don't remember this being like a super issue with Riley having this whole like sharing is not necessarily caring kind of conversation with him. And I was thinking when I was driving home today, I was trying to figure out why that is. Why is it such a bigger thing for me now? And even like thinking that I had to have this conversation. And I think it's because when Riley was little and he was about Remy's age, our church didn't have many kids. So like Reagan and Riley and like one other kid made up the entire children's section of the church. So Reagan's not sharing food with Riley. She knows. And Riley wasn't sharing food. Like they just didn't do that. So I think maybe that's why it was never something that I really thought, oh man, this is going to be a moment for me. But Remy at our church now, Remy has 5 friends that are his age, and they're or kind of roundabout his age, and that he's playing with all the time, and that he's with, and that we're eating with, and that we're socializing with, and stuff like that, and all these everybody else is being taught share food. That's normal. And I am thinking, I can't share food. He can't share food. I can't let him share food. He needs to learn no. So, and then I think, I don't know this mom very well, this one particular mom. And oh, how's she going to take it that I, won't let her kid share food with my kid? Is it going to look like or we did share food with her. We just did it in a kind of bizarrish way, maybe like by handing it to her instead of letting her pick what she wanted. Is that going to be misconstrued as rude? It wasn't rude on my part. I didn't mean for it to be rude. um but I don't know how that's going to be taken, or so there's that concern or that social fear. um it's not going to stop me. So I mean, I frankly, Remy's survival is way more important to me than what you think about my parenting. Um, but yeah, so I did have that moment where I thought, like, man, I hope she doesn't think this is. I hope, I hope this is not ever mistaken as me being like mean to a kid. So I did actually have a conversation with the mom, and I just told her that we're food allergy family. Remy has a food allergy, so I have to be careful about like letting people touch the food, share food with him. It's a weird situation for us, and so I didn't want her to think that we were being mean. But I have an issue with sharing food. It's just something that we have to deal with, and so that's kind of where I left it. And she was receptive. She seemed fine. So I think everything will be okay. And I don't mind if she asks questions or whatever. I prefer people asking questions and, having a conversation with me rather than just like assuming or rather than assuming. Um, Another time that I realized this was going to be an issue was a couple months ago when we were at a fellowship meal. And like our church does fellowship meals every so often. They're not really once a month, but they're, like maybe once every other month. And so usually the boys don't eat at the fellowship meals because it's potluck. Everybody's brought stuff. I don't know what people have cooked with. Ingredients are not listed on things. We do have a few people who will specify that their dish is either nut free, egg free, dairy free, whatever, which I love. It's super kind. And those foods we usually place pretty much at the beginning of the food line, so that they don't get cross contaminated. Um, if it's a meal, if it's like a fellowship meal where we have had a specific main course prepared ahead of time, like the church, we have a fall barbecue, which is one of my favorites. And it's where a couple of the men at church will smoke a bunch of butts and chicken and ribs, and it is amazing. Okay, I'm telling you, you have not had a church potluck until you have come to one of ours. And so that one is amazing, and everybody else brings sides and desserts. So I know because I know the men, and because the men know our situation, and because just the basic principle of the food, it's it's not contaminated. So we'll go, and the boys will devour the meats, but they'll get like typically we will go in ahead of time and prepare their plates first and push their keep their plates stored somewhere separate so that nothing else gets accidentally mixed in. If somebody had a spoon in the potato salad, but then they stick it into the meat, like now the entire thing of meat is no good for them. So that's typically what I'll do is like prepare ahead of time. And we did that this past weekend too. There it was chicken and pork tacos, and so we made their plates ahead of time and kept them in the kitchen until lunchtime, and both boys went and asked for their food, and they were given their special plates. So I'm super appreciative of my church for doing that and for caring, and I absolutely love it. I usually will walk through. Um, I'll usually be around in the kitchen whenever we're having something and reading ingredients, like for that barbecue night, like checking the buns. Can because Riley will always ask if he can have the bun, and so we'll go in there and look and read the stuff, and everybody's usually really good. um and I really cannot tell you how grateful I am to the group that works in our kitchen, and just how much they love my boys. So super grateful. But there was this one particular event, and I'm pretty sure it was the fall barbecue. The kids were underneath the table because they're kids and they're crazy. So there was like three or four of them underneath the table, snacking, playing on, I think Remy's iPad is what they were playing with. And, the adults are sitting at the table having a good time. And I remember Remy wanted a pretzel, and one of his best friends had a bowl full of dessert stuff. And she had like a cookie on the bottom and a couple other things, and then she had some pretzels in there. And she was like, "Here, I got pretzels." And I was like, "Rem, look, I don't know how I heard it. Like, it's one of those like weird Spider-Man tingly senses things. It's like, I got to pay attention to this conversation." So I'm like, "Rem, you can't eat that. And you can't eat anything from in that bowl." And then he was like, "It doesn't have egg, it's a pretzel." And I said, "I know, but the the cake and the cookies that are in there have egg." And they were like, "No, it doesn't." And I was, "Yeah, it does." And they were like, "There's no egg in here." And I was like, "There is, but it's baked inside of stuff." So I was like, "It's a concept I know that you don't understand. Not a big deal. I don't need you to understand it. I just need you to know you can't eat anything inside that bowl." So I was like, "Come with me. We'll go get you your own bowl. And we'll get you some safe pretzels that you can eat." And he was like, "Okay." So that's what we did. Um, but that's when I realized, I think that it was going to be harder. That was something I was going to have to really drill home to him. That he cannot just like. He's so nice. He just wants to share. His friends are so nice. They just want to share. We can't do that. So So I will be going against the parenting norm, especially here in the South, where you gotta be nice to everybody, and we will not be learning to share in my house because that is not okay. And um, it's just sharing is caring to an extent, but it's also kind of ludicrous. So, um, yeah, so if you ask my sons for some of their food, I hope they turn you down. And I hope that they will not accept anything either that they do not fully know is safe. Um, so, and that's not being rude, that's just safety.